next to last panel of the day. So all nerves are gone. You're ready to have a casual conversation with your judges. Is that correct?
Of course.
Sure. Put that down as a maybe. All right. As we are to be your judges today, I think you should know who we are. I'm Les Folke. I'm a practicing attorney here in Denver. And my colleagues are?
I'm Carrie Fox. I sit on the Colorado Court of Appeals across the street, and I hope you'll come visit us.
I'm Rita Barnes Kittle. I'm a trial attorney at the United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commission.
I'd like for you to introduce yourselves and your coach, please.
I'm Margot Reed, and I'm a junior.
I'm Zach Talbis, and I'm a junior.
I'm Tate Kim. I'm also a junior, and our teacher is Jeff Ryman, and our coach is Larry Berkowitz.
Welcome to you all. Let's get right to your question. And it is question 2. In the 1928 wiretapping case of Olmsted v. United States, Justice Louis Brandeis wrote a dissent arguing for a general right to privacy. He stated, "The makers of our Constitution sought to protect Americans in their beliefs, their thoughts, their emotions, and their sensations. They conferred, as against the government, the right to be left alone, the most comprehensive of rights and the right most valued by civilized men. Do you agree or disagree with Justice Brandeis? Why or why not? Where in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights might the right to privacy be implied? Under what circumstances, if any, is it appropriate for government to limit individual liberty in order to promote national security?" Reimer, you may begin.
In the 1700s, citizens didn't worry about whether the government was listening in on people's conversations. However, when new technology and intrusive governments collide, cases such as Olmsted versus the United States arise. In this case, the government wiretapped Olmsted's phone conversation and used it as evidence to the victim of bootlegging. But he argued that this violated his right to privacy, implied in the Fourth Amendment, which prevents unreasonable searches. The Supreme Court sided against Olmsted only because the wiretap was conducted outside the home. This context of privacy is what most people are familiar with, our right to be left alone from government surveillance. However, the right to privacy extends much, much further.
Griswold v. Connecticut demonstrated that the right to privacy covers marital relations. Justice William Douglas delineated that, under the First, Fourth, and Ninth Amendments, couples have the right to meet with their doctor and use contraceptives. He stated that couples have the right to associate with their doctor under the First Amendment, and the Fourth Amendment affirms the right of the people to be secure in their persons against unreasonable searches and seizures. Moreover, the Ninth Amendment clarifies that other rights exist in the Constitution, even if they are not listed. Hence, the right to privacy was implied.
The right to privacy is also evidenced in Roe v. Wade. Abortions were illegal in Texas, and yet Roe sought to receive one, leading the Supreme Court to decide that the right to privacy is broad enough to be covered in the abortion decision, as it found that women's right to choose whether to have children or not is protected by the Ninth Amendment.
As Justice Brandeis stated in Olmsted, the right to privacy is the most comprehensive of rights because it covers so many aspects of our lives and can be derived from many different constitutional provisions. However, today is not the most valued right. According to Pew Research Center's public polls, in June 2013, 62% of Americans supported anti-terrorism surveillance, and 56% of Americans supported National Security Agency phone monitoring, even though both sacrifice privacy. On the other hand, according to Daniel Ellsberg, the man behind the Pentagon Papers, this wholesale invasion of Americans' privacy contributes nothing to our national security. It puts in danger the very liberties we're trying to protect.
We agree with Mr. Ellsberg. The government can't limit privacy in any way it wants in order to defend us, because such action establishes dangerous precedent for future administrations. The NSA's PRISM program currently collects stored communications based on demands made to internet and telephone companies, such as Verizon and Google, through warrants regulated by FISA courts, an institution established by the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act of 1978, designed solely to approve surveillance warrants against suspected foreign intelligence. But PRISM currently collects Americans' telephony metadata, such as telephone numbers dialed and the length of calls. Every 90 days, the FISA court reviews this program, but because the FISA court is held in secrecy, it is an unreliable check on power.
PRISM poses a threat to privacy because everyone should have the right to use their privately owned phones without the fear that their personal information are being collected. As the Supreme Court declared in Katz v. United States, a case that reversed the decision in Olmsted v. United States, citizens are entitled to assume that the words they utter into the mouthpiece shall not be broadcast to the world.
Not only does the government spy on us, it's also going as far to kill Americans. In 2011, Anwar al-Awlaki, whom the government claimed to be a senior operational leader of Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, was killed by a U.S. drone strike. However, Awlaki was an American citizen. Even though the Attorney General Eric Holder has tried to justify this act, the government ignored all of Awlaki's rights and ended his life and hence his individual liberty with the push of a button. We're now ready for your questions.
An interesting aspect of the surveillance that you've been talking about is its relationship to freedom of speech. If you know that your communications are being listened to, recorded, stored somewhere, do you feel the same right to simply speak your mind as you might otherwise? Or are you worried that the government will ultimately use your communications against you?
Well, as we can see, if hypothetically, though we do not know for sure, the government is listening into our telephone conversations, the right to free speech, which is protected by the First Amendment, is jeopardized because people will not feel as safe to express themselves as they have been before. For example, in the Katz v. United States, this was a case where Katz was in a phone booth and his conversation was being listened to. And therefore, if he had known, he wouldn't have been saying the same things that he was. And therefore, his words would not have been used against him in the court of law.
Also, this is the reason why many internet companies such as Yahoo, Microsoft are trying to revamp their security measures through HTTP security measures. Because recently the companies are using a cloud system where every information from every single user is being stored in one place. So therefore, if NSA or other security agencies can tap into that, it's not rather that they're enforcing a law that violates your First Amendment, rather it's discouraging people from expressing their ideas.
And besides even curving what we speak based on freedom of speech, it also seems like it could also curve where we go and how we move around the world, because currently a document was released last week saying that the NSA uses cell phone towers all around the world to track the movement of GPS chips in people's phones. And so if people know that their GPS chips in their phones are being tracked, they may not feel as easy to move freely around the world as if they come in contact. They use this system called Co-Traveler to find associates of known terrorists. And if you come in contact with a terrorist, just someone walking around the street, they could begin looking at you as thinking you're a suspected terrorist.
Zach, you told us that there's some survey data that our right to privacy is no longer considered the most valuable right, at least according to the majority of people. To what would you attribute sort of that loss of sanctity of that right, and what can your generation do to restore it?
I think the various attempts on to breach the right to privacy has definitely kept people away from feeling ease. For example, in the Supreme Court case Jones versus United States, which was, I believe, 2012 or 2013, where Jones' car was tapped with a GPS, and therefore the government could see where he was traveling. The Supreme Court ruled this unconstitutional, and therefore people will feel This example shows that the right to privacy should be respected in that sense. And the way that our generation can take a hold of that is definitely by raising our voice towards our beliefs.
Another way our generation can go against this lack of supporting privacy is by supporting this new act that came into Congress on September 29th called the USA Freedom Act, which would actually end the bulk collection of information the NSA currently collects. It would also put a privacy advocate in the FISA courts, as currently right now, the judges are appointed by the Chief Justice of the Judiciary, and they will usually be biased towards security. By putting a privacy advocate into the court, it would give a two-sided argument inside there. This act would also allow the FISA court to release its opinions in a way, and that would, yeah.
And to add to that, we could really use a privacy representative in FISA courts because in 2012, out of 1,853 warrants in 2012 requested to it, only one was denied. So clearly they have a security bias. In addition, answering to the question how our generation can do it, in the Sunday, last week Sunday, New York Times, there were Colorado professors were considering making apps that make it hard to perhaps track, and they actually made a price on how to do it, and also it connects to how much loss we have in value of privacy, because most of the younger generation was willing to pay about $4 for these kind of apps, but the other people were saying this is not worth it. So again, it's coming back to that sense that we just don't value privacy as much.
So I want to turn this to you guys in your school. What are your privacy rights in school?
Well, as we can see in the Supreme Court case TLO versus New Jersey, we as students do not retain the Fourth Amendment right to that protects us against unreasonable searches and seizures, and we do not, in order for us to be searched, we do not need a warrant to be presented. But in extreme cases, we can see this is reversed in the Supreme Court, or I'm not sure if it was Supreme Court, but it was Safford versus Redding, where a 13-year-old girl was strip searched by a school administrator, and in that sense, unless it was extreme probable cause, which was not present in this particular case, a warrant is necessary, or not necessary.
You just stop me there. How about a round of applause for this guy? I was impressed with how hard you worked to get where you are now. You certainly demonstrated to me that you have spent a lot of time, and that says something about your coach, in studying this terribly important issue that's going to be with you. This is your generation's issue. My generation had landlines, and we were within the scope of Cats v. U.S. the whole time. But it's a new world, and you need to be thinking about whether you want to trade individual freedom for security. And I got the clear impression you're not prepared to do that, and I can only say thank God. Okay, I thought it was good for you to know about the extent of the searches, good reference to co-traveler, good on the newly introduced bill, which may or may not have a snowball's chance, but nonetheless, it has been introduced to try and stem some of this. You know, I brought up the First Amendment freedom of speech, and you said essentially that could have a chilling effect on speech. Think about, too, the Fifth Amendment, wherein, before you gather the evidence from the individual person who's speaking, you should be giving Miranda warnings, and that's never done, of course. Oh, listen, by the way, individual caller, this is the NSA speaking. You have the right to But think of all the various rights that get involved with the whole question of government spying on you. Certainly Madison, Hamilton, and the other convention leaders in 1787 had great worries about central government power. And if they could see what's happening now, they would cry their eyes out. I really believe that. Let's see. Roe v. Wade was an excellent citation. Keep in mind that's only in the first trimester that she has absolute right to determine productivity. I thought you might have brought up the fact that Katz, in the opinion the judge said, the Fourth Amendment doesn't protect places, it protects people. And I thought that was an excellent point. Your reference to U.S. v. Jones was excellent. Recent case, 2012, and it involved the attachment of a GPS tracking device. And the court said, if you had reason to suspect that this person was a drug dealer, why didn't you come into court and get a warrant, for heaven's sake? we are not going to tolerate this invasion of privacy without court approval. And you talked about how seldom anything gets turned down at VISA. I thought that was excellent. Be aware that privacy versus security is going to be an issue throughout your lives. It is now, and it's going to get worse. As Brandeis said in his opinion, the new wiretapping devices are just a new development by the government, and God only knows what they'll come up with next. And I think we're seeing that. But good job. My colleagues?
You worked really, really well as a team. It was really seamless, you know, how you integrated your talking. And I like that you started, Zach, you started present day and then went back to Olmsted. And that just really gives it just relevance, more relevance, because it's not just an old case, it's something that still applies to us. And above all, kudos for taking the government to task. I think this is the first team that has actually said, no, it's not okay with us, for you to, in the name of national security and value of our privacy, and you should be very cautious about that in terms of what your generation can do. Yeah, legislation's an avenue, the courts. There's nothing wrong with bringing lawsuits to make sure that the government is not exceeding its bounds.
So I want to echo all of those comments. In addition, you guys have a really nice presentation. I can tell that you've worked really hard on this material. So you were able to talk to us and look at us while you were talking about it, as opposed to just reading your notes. That was really nice to see. I liked how you integrated so many current events, not only into your speech, but also in talking, responding to the questions. I liked that you talked about the Pew Research, and I liked that you talked about the new bill, and the document last week about the towers around the country. That shows me that you're not just, you didn't write your speech a month ago and you're just been memorizing it since then. You're looking at current events to see what's going on that matters. I also like that in your speech you said very clearly and unequivocally, we agree with Mr. Ellsberg. So your position was known. I find myself often sort of going, what is their position? Not sure. So I like that it was really clear what you guys were thinking. So I have other notes, but I think you did a great job, and I really enjoyed listening to it.
With your depth of knowledge, don't stop there. Take this with you in your future life. Use it forever. And for goodness sake, share your knowledge with others. That's very, very important. Now, I'm looking around, I've been seeing a lot of community support for you. And what they're telling you is that this is important and that you are important. Now, let's give a round of applause not only to the parents and friends that I see in the audience, but to your hardworking coach who helped you get here. Good luck in the competition.
Thank you, judges.